Hey, running friends. Welcome to the Wrinkled Runner podcast. I'm Sherry, the Wrinkled Runner. I'm over 50 and I love to run wherever I go, but Buffalo, New York is my home. If you are looking to start to run or you're an older runner, this podcast is especially for you, so subscribe now. I love to help people get running and keep running. On today's podcast, we are back with Dave, my husband, and we are going to be talking about running pet peeves. So, Dave, get off your phone. We're going to talk about running pet peeves today, and what's one of your running pet peeves? Usually our running pet peeves are actually pretty in sync. Things annoy us.
Well, my first running pet peeve is not in sync with yours.
What's that?
It's actually running.
It's not true. You like running.
No, really, I don't.
You like running with me.
Yes, I do.
That doesn't sound very convincing.
I guess I need to drink another beer.
Jeez.
Which is the only reason I do running.
I know.
I think we talked about that the last time.
The last time we talked.
It's still true. Running is only for beer drinking. I don't know why else you'd want to do it.
Hey, you ran a race last weekend and you were first in your age group.
Well, there you go.
There you go. So it's beneficial to you, for you.
It is, definitely. Okay, so my first running pet peeve.
Yeah, what's a running pet peeve that you have?
People walking their dogs in the morning.
We love dogs.
I love dogs.
Straight.
They are my favorite.
We love dogs.
They're wonderful.
But people who walk their dogs, and I
It's not the dogs.
It's not, no, but I understand why the owners do not want to switch them to the street.
Of course they can't. But they also just act like they own that sidewalk.
Well, we find a lot of walkers that own the sidewalk. They feel like they own the sidewalk. And I think I think that goes hand in hand with the dog pet peeve. Not the dog pet peeve. The owners of dog pet peeve.
Yeah.
Is that people, we always feel like we're the ones that have to jump out of the way.
It's very few and far between that someone else will move to the side
even
or the street.
If there's a couple or two people walking side by side, they will not move.
What's with that?
We have to run into the grass or into the street.
Yeah, why can't we just be all considerate of one another?
Yeah, I feel like we always move, but then if somebody else actually moves, I feel like that's such a rare occurrence that it's super noticeable when that happens.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
And then I always want to run out in the street and hug them. But they wouldn't like that either.
But I find runners we're usually, I think, pretty...
Runners are pretty friendly.
Friendly, yeah. And we kind of jockey for, moving and getting out of the way and things like that.
Yeah.
And some walkers, they're just oblivious, so I'm okay with that sort of, but it's the ones that look at you like they're challenging you, like they are not going to move no matter what.
Which, when you think about it, is an amazing thing, because you're doing something that's just torture for you, and it's like not even fun, and yet you're still the nice person. Who can think... Although, maybe it's because they look at you and they hate you because you're a runner.
Maybe. And maybe they've had encounters with other runners that they feel like, the runners feel like we own the sidewalk.
Nah.
So what's another pet peeve?
I think it's your turn now.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. A pet peeve with running, especially outside, would be traffic, cars. People who, especially during rush hours, they don't expect anybody. They don't care if you have the right of way. I think a lot of drivers don't actually even understand that you have the right of way. like if they're making a right on red and you're going to cross on that one cross street that they're trying to turn onto, you actually have the right of way to go across the street. But they act like you don't, and that you're the one being the jerk because you're running across the street when they want to make a right on red.
Yeah, that's a good pet peeve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when Eric was learning how to drive, and he was convinced that if you made a right on red, you had the right of way? So I think a lot of other drivers feel the same way, although they're a lot older than 16 when he was learning how to drive. But yeah, I feel like that seems to be a thing as well.
I think you're right.
Yeah. What's another pet peeve?
Oh, it's another pet peeve. This might be a short podcast.
I mean, we complain all the time, so there's got to be more. I mean, it's not a pet peeve, but I can't believe the number of people who think it's hilarious to put on their turn signal when I'm crossing the street, so that I stop short because I think they're going to turn, and then they just laugh hysterically, and then they keep going straight. And it doesn't usually happen when I'm with you, but when I'm on my own, that it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And they laugh and they think it's hilarious.
I think I've only had that happen a couple of times.
Yeah. To me, it happens like all the time. And now I don't trust if someone's going to do that. Like if they turn on their turn signal, I don't trust them, even if it's real, which is bad because maybe I'll go. I don't usually, though. I usually stop.
How about this for a pet peeve? Is this a pet peeve?
I don't know. You haven't said it yet.
Like what's with building communities with no sidewalks?
Oh, yes.
And super narrow road, what do you call it? Shoulders.
Yes, I agree. I mean, we had that problem in the suburbs. We had that problem a lot of times when we go on vacation, wherever we are. There are no sidewalks. Like, I don't get that. I thought the suburbs were supposed to be like built for that kind of thing, but I guess actually not. Because,
I think suburbs must be built for cars.
Yeah.
Not for pedestrians.
Yeah, because we find that all the time, all over the place, all the time. We're always running in the road unless we're in a city.
Yeah. What's another pet peeve?
I know a pet peeve.
What?
I got one. When we are running on a bike path and the bikers do not respect the pedestrian walkway and don't even seem to know that here in Buffalo we have some bike paths. There's a bike path and then there's a pedestrian path, and it's all on one path. And so there's a solid white line for the pedestrian path, and then there's a dashed line for the bike path, and the bikers are supposed to be on either side of the dash depending on what way they're going. But a lot of bikers seem to think that they are to ride in the pedestrian path, and we've actually been yelled at. Remember that time we were yelled at, and the guy was like really obnoxious, and he was heading straight for us, and he was in the pedestrian path, and then we got yelled at because he thought that we were in the bike path, and I've gotten yelled at by some guy who was like, "You're supposed to be on the other side facing the bike," or whatever, which actually wouldn't have even been true if I was on the other side, but whatever. And I was in the pedestrian path. And that has happened so many times.
Yeah.
And that is so annoying. And these guys are wearing the full kit of the little bike shorts with the, the short sleeve compression with like advertising on it, as if they are aware of how to be a professional biker, but they clearly don't know the rules of the road. And that's a big pet peeve. That's a big pet peeve for me, is because you don't know what to do. There are times we're on a bike path where we go on the one side where a bike will have to go around us because that's what everybody else does. But the reality is, if you're running on a bike path, you're supposed to be on the side of facing quote-unquote traffic, as if the bike is a car, But most people don't seem to know that.
Well, but you can't do that depending on which side you're going, because the runner says only on the one side. But
Yes, I'm talking about if there's only a bike path, if there's no delineation between pedestrians and the bikes.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And we have a hard time with that because we try to do the right thing, but then everybody else is not doing the right thing, and so...
So do you have to do the wrong thing because
everybody else is doing the wrong thing, and so you're actually not safe because, or you're not being safe, or you're not being safe for everybody else because you're doing the right thing and everybody else is doing the wrong thing. So that's a pet peeve, especially when people get mad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a pet peeve, but I was definitely peeved that day.
Yes, you were. Yeah, you were peeved that day.
Here's a pet peeve.
What's that?
When your running partner says that they want you to run slow, but then they keep speeding up during the run. That's a pet peeve of mine.
I tell you that if you want me to slow down, that I will slow down. You know, and my listeners know, because I've said it many times, that I suck at pacing.
She is the worst pacer ever.
And so I don't know how fast or slow that I am going, and I usually skew too fast. And then all of a sudden you'll get frustrated and want me to pull back, but you haven't told me to pull back in the past 10 minutes. And I always tell you, if you want me to pull back, just say something. Just say.
Yeah.
And I do.
But after the 10th time on a run, kind of fed up.
That's on you.
No, that's what you call a pet peeve.
Still on you. Here's a pet peeve of mine. Somebody who schedules meetings at 7 a.m. and has to be in the office at 7 a.m. and it has a 30-minute commute, and therefore we have to get up at 5:30 in the morning in order to get a run in the morning. I draw the line at 5:45.
Maybe that's strategic. Because as we all know, I don't really like running.
But I'm going to make you do it anyway. So I'd rather run in the morning, but I draw the line at 5:45. I am not a morning person, and 5:45 is heroic for me. So when we can't do that because you have these ridiculously early meetings, then we have to do it in the evenings, which neither one of us actually like.
That is true.
Especially in the winter. It's not so bad in the summer, but in the winter it's pretty bad. Although it can be pretty hot in the afternoon as opposed to early in the morning.
Yeah.
In races, I don't like, I mean, I know people have to do it, but I don't like spitting. That's probably just my personal thing, but because it can fly back and hit you, you know?
Well, I don't mind spitting, but it's sort of the awareness piece, right?
Yeah.
Like that. It's also like the person who suddenly decides they're going to walk.
Yes.
Which is okay if you're aware of the runners around you, but people just stop, and that often happens in front of us.
Yes, I did cover that actually. I can't remember if it was on the podcast or on the YouTube channel that I covered. If you're going to stop and go to the side, especially if you're like doing the run walk thing, that you should raise your hand, and that at least, even if people around you don't understand that that's kind of etiquette for you're going to be stopping, you're at least drawing enough attention to yourself that maybe people know something's going to happen, you know? I mean, remember that crash we saw during the Buffalo Marathon? You know, that person stopped and then the other person crashed right into her, and then, you know, they were having words and whatever. People just don't seem to be very aware of what's going on around them. And I think that's the same thing with when we encounter walkers or, you know, other people. They just don't seem to be aware that there's other people that are going to be using the sidewalks or whatever. So I think awareness in general can be a pet peeve because people just don't seem to be aware. And oh my goodness, like some of the sidewalks here in Buffalo are like 6 feet wide?
Yeah.
And one person that's in front of you can literally take the entire sidewalk to walk.
Yeah.
From like they're S-ing all the way up the street.
Yeah, they're weaving.
I mean, we've had to jump in the street numerous times because there's been one person in front of us walking they're weaving all over the place, and they're not drunk. Well, I hope not, but they're not drunk. They don't seem to be. They're just oblivious that they're taking up the whole sidewalk.
Yeah, I agree. Well, since we're talking about races, running race pet peeves, how about, why can't we just be honest about how fast we can run?
Oh, in the corrals?
In the corrals, and line up in the right spot so that we're not creating obstacles in front of us.
Oh, yes. When the turkey trot is a perfect example. A lot of people line up at front. Remember that it just happened to us a few years ago. They lined up front, but they were walkers. They were walking it, and there were 10 of them.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't even get around them. We lined up where we were supposed to, but then we're running and encounter this wall of people.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not running it, so why are you lined up with the people who are supposed to be the fastest? Yeah, that drives me crazy too. In the bigger marathons, you're told where you're going to run. But in some of these, things like turkey trots or whatever, you get to pick wherever you're going to run. And, that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy.
Hey, did I tell you guys about the pet peeve about having a running partner who just keeps accelerating?
You did.
Huh. That's really annoying.
It's on you. I'm going to say the same thing. It's on you. On you.
You know what else is really annoying in a pet peeve?
What's that? Let me guess.
When you're supposed to be doing a podcast and you're trying to be supportive of your spouse and they just keep laughing at you.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because this is the third take of this question, because I have a glass of wine and I swallowed loudly, so I'm asking him to ask the question again, and this is the third time, so go ahead.
I think this might be the fourth. So how about this one? This isn't a pet peeve of mine.
Let me guess. Earphones?
Earphones.
Yes.
How do you feel about people running, particularly in races, but with earphones? Is that a pet peeve for you?
It's not a pet peeve for me. I choose to not wear earphones when I'm racing because I like the seeing everybody and what's going on around me and things like that. I understand that people do need to wear or listen to music sometimes, and that motivates them. So it's not really a pet peeve for me, people wearing earphones. What is a pet peeve for me is going on Twitter and finding out that there's this whole debate with runners about that you're not really a runner or you're not serious about it if you take your phone with you, which I find absolutely ridiculous as a woman and as an older runner. I find it ridiculous that people debate whether you're a runner based on what you're carrying or listening to. Because there are runners out there that actually will say, well, if you have to listen to music on the run, then you're not really a runner. That's just ridiculous to me.
Totally agree with that.
And I feel like you hear about hit and run all the time, and it seems like it's mostly hit and runs nowadays, and I feel like you need to be able to communicate with somebody else. And as a woman who sometimes runs by myself, to not have a means of communication or a means of getting emergency help if I needed it, I just don't understand that at all. So, if people want to listen to music while they're racing, I'm okay with that. But shaming people if they do, or if they carry a phone with them, that is a pet peeve if somebody is like that. So, yeah. And I think, people will say, well, if you run slower than this pace, you're not a real runner. Or if you, don't run this amount, you're not a real runner. And it's like, I don't understand that either. Because there are going to be people that run faster than the person who's saying that and runs more miles than the person who's saying that. So, yeah, that kind of attitude I just don't understand and I don't like or appreciate at all. So maybe that's a pet peeve.
You know another pet peeve of mine?
What's that?
Hills.
Oh, yeah, you don't like hills.
I hate hills.
I don't know if that can be a pet peeve of yours, except that I make you do them.
Yeah. I still don't like it.
No, I've gotten used to hills. I didn't used to like hills. I used to not be able to do hills, remember?
I do remember.
We'd stop at the bottom of it and I would just walk. Hills are good for you, though. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here, I think. I think we've gone over some pet peeves, and we'll probably think of more after we're done with this podcast. But do you have anything else to add before we finish our little episode here?
All I want to remind everyone is that the reason we run is so that we can drink beer.
There you go.
So run, run, run.
Yeah. Today's website resource is my Facebook page. You'll find me at the wrinkledrunner.com page, where I share my content and interact with runners like you. Head over to the page and let's start a conversation. Post a question, post a running triumph, post a hello. If you're a beginning runner, a question can help many. There is no question that someone else doesn't have. If you've been running for a while, join in with your perspective. Next week, I'll be talking about using a running watch. If you are new to the world of running watches, listen in as I talk about what they can do for you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you know another runner who could benefit from today's topic, go ahead and share it. Do you have any running questions? You can ask me. Email me at sherry@wrinkledrunner.com, and if I can't answer your question, I will do the research to find the answer and share it with you. The questions I get from listeners like you help me develop episodes, so please don't be shy. You can sign up for my once-a-month newsletter using the link provided so that you can have all the Wrinkled Runner resources from the past month all in one place. I also have opened up my virtual coaching in addition to coaching one-on-one with those in the Buffalo, New York area. So head to my coaching page on the Wrinkled Runner website, which I will, of course, link to, and check out how we may be able to work together. Until next Monday, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the run.